Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN 1037 Lafayette and 1041 Lake Charles YouTube page. My name is Matt Miguez. Today we're going to be talking about multiple topics surrounding college football. The Heisman Trophy is this Saturday. Does Jayden Daniels put his hands on it for the third time that an LSU player would win the Heisman Trophy? We also look at the college football playoff. Did the committee get it right? Was it right for Florida State to be left out, or should they have been put in? And also, we'll look at the SEC Bowl matchups for the 2023 bowl season that gets underway next week. Here is my conversation with Tiger Bait's Preston Guy.
Joining me here on the Miguez Mindset from TigerBait.com is Mr. Preston Guy. Preston, good morning, buddy. How are you?
Doing good, man. How's it going, Matt?
Couldn't be better. So let's start with the news of the day, and that is Mike Denbrock getting a 3-year contract extension with LSU. Obviously, this is well-deserved after LSU had the best offense in the country this year. Jayden Daniels is 72 or so hours away from winning LSU's third Heisman Trophy. It just fits, right? What are your thoughts on the move?
Yeah, I mean, so all the coaches, all the assistant coaches, when they signed with Brian Kelly, signed 3-year contracts, right? So they were going to only have 1 year left on their contract. And I think with Denbrock, after this season and his development of Jayden Daniels, it was fairly obvious that you want to bring him back. It also more significantly says any teams that are looking for a head coach, it makes it financially unwise for him to sign this extension if he didn't want to stick around for LSU for next year. So, I mean, and there were some teams who could have come knocking, looking for him. Not necessarily like a power, like a Florida or someone big like that, but, some group of 5 schools and stuff like that definitely would have some interest in him based off of what he's done in his long career of work. So it's definitely a good thing. I expect his contract will be in the $2 million neighborhood. And it really just shows a lot of, continuity, faith, and consistency. Notably, he gets an extension, but obviously no extension coming out for the defensive coordinator, who only has 1 year on his contract, and definitely doesn't shut the door on the possible moving on from Matt House after the bowl game.
You see, that was kind of going to be my next question. How do you see that playing out? Does LSU move on from Matt House?
A lot of people were expecting right after the Texas A&M game for an announcement to come, and my thought on that would be why? What benefit do you have? Now,
there's no point.
Right. Now, if you really are so desperate to win this bowl game and you feel, Bob Diaco was Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator for Notre Dame when they went to the national championship in 2012. He's currently a special teams coordinator, but your staff's already kind of thin with Coach Jimmy Lindsey being out this year. I don't think that firing Matt House helps you win the bowl game any more or less. And all it does is really hurt the recruiting, because there are some recruits he's recruited who may have to, if they don't know what's going on there, they may, decide to decommit based on him. I'm sure they all have a certain, they get the hunch that he's on the hot seat, right? Based on what happened with LSU this year. But it makes sense to keep him around till the bowl game. You got early signing day, December 20th. It's not like hiring a head coach with the transfer portal and deadline and all that good stuff. It's so pertinent to get him in place before December 20th. In fact, probably by the end of November. It's so pertinent. But a defensive coordinator, you can go out and hire a guy in January, February, whenever you need. So I think if they make a decision, they're going to wait until after the bowl game if they haven't already made that decision.
Now, getting away from LSU for a moment, the big conversation in college football has been the college football playoff. Some people have called the Florida State being left out the heist of the century. What are your thoughts on the 4 teams that made the playoff? Obviously, look, I'll just throw out my 2 cents real quick. I think 2 things can be true at the same time. I think Florida State got screwed, but then at the same time, I think the committee also got it right. What do you think?
I think it's a travesty. It's a mockery of the sport. Why even play football if you can get a bunch of old dudes circle in a room and say, "Wow, they lost their quarterback, so I think they're better." And sure, maybe common sense tells you that, but you don't know. Ohio State won the championship with a third string quarterback. Guess what? With that third string quarterback, they beat a top 15 team by double digits on the road. Did the offense produce as the same level? Of course not. They had 3.4 yards per play. I get it. But at the same time, that defense is still a major focal point of Florida State. Those receivers are still making plays. And by the way, your second string quarterback was going to come back. Look, the whole best team versus most deserving, that's a clause they put in to prevent a group of 5 team from getting in. Like just straight up, like the Boise States of the world, the TCUs back in the day, the UCFs. They're like, look, we're going to keep it real with you. We don't. They're never. It was never designed to keep a. It was unfathomable that a Power 5 team, especially one that scheduled 2 SEC teams in addition to their Power 5 schedule, is unfathomable that they'd go 13-0 in a major conference. We're not talking about someone who's beating up on Tulane and no, we're talking about an ACC team, Florida State. They went 13-0, and you don't even give them a chance because, well, their quarterback's hurt, and we know. We know. I mean, don't give them a chance to prove it.
Well,
I mean, they only won every single freaking football game they played in, including, by the way, a top 15 LSU team, okay, away from home. So I just, it's chicken. It's phooey. It's a mockery of the sport. It's the worst decision in the BCS college football playoff era to exclude them. And it's always funny. It seems like this, it just coincidentally, when these crazy things happen, it's always Nick Saban in Alabama on the beneficiary end.
Right. Now, look, I will say this in the committee's defense. I think Florida State was kind of on the fence before Jordan Travis got hurt. Because I can remember College Game Day where the guys were speculating the Final Four, and they all kind of agreed that Florida State was debatable because their strength is, they had a 55th strength of schedule.
It ultimately doesn't matter if you're 13-0 out of a Power 5 conference. You cannot put a one-loss team in there above them. I mean, you won every football game, everything that was put in front of you. It's not like they scheduled week 2. They had LSU and Florida on their schedule, by the way. I mean, they did what they did. They took care of business, 13-0. Now, if you play a weak schedule and you're 12-1, all right, well, you should have took care of business that game. You shouldn't have dropped it. I understand. 13-0 Power 5 team.
I'm in that weird situation where I see both sides of the coin.
Why not just put Georgia in then?
I mean,
if you're just
were asking for that.
If you're going to talk about, okay, well, let's get the 4 best. Just go to Vegas and say, all right, what's your spread against everybody else? Georgia's your number 1 seed, right? You're going to probably put Alabama in there, and Texas and Michigan. Why even include Washington? Because we know, Vegas knows already that Washington isn't as. Why give them a chance?
Well, you see, I would argue that the Pac-12 was better than the ACC this year. I think that has something to do with it.
I'm not arguing against that, but the fact of the matter is, if you're talking about the best teams,
yeah,
we all know Washington's not in your top 5 teams in Vegas right now. They would not be favored against 4 other, all but 4 teams. There's just no way. So that's what I'm saying. Like why even play the games? Why play football when you can get some old dudes in a room who just use the preseason rankings? We know who the best teams are. But hell, LSU was in the top 5 preseason. Put them in there.
Right.
It's just it's shenanigans. It's nonsense. It's a mockery. And look, I understand this year is a unique year. If you look at it, You've got the strongest resumes of the top 7 teams. There's 7 teams with resumes that would arguably get you in either the national championship or the college football playoff. Mind you, LSU made a national championship in 2007 with 2 losses.
Correct.
So there is an argument for more teams than there's ever been, but at the same time, you cannot do that. I'm glad we're moving to a 12-team playoff, and we shouldn't have to worry about this next year. But this is a total, just absolute, just dunce job. This is people who just watch NFL and don't take college football seriously. This is the kind of stuff they point to, like, you could win all your games and you don't even get a chance. You're right. You're right. It's a joke sport.
Yeah,
the sport's a joke right now.
I saw a tweet the other day that said, Trevor Lawrence was hurt in the Monday Night Football game. The Jacksonville Jaguars are now ineligible for the playoffs.
4 out of the 7 current playoff teams in the NFL and the AFC, right, have backup quarterbacks in.
Correct.
Take them out. We know they're not as good. We know. We already know, because we know what the impact of the quarter. We know. So just take them out. Who cares? Why play football? We know already. It's a mockery. It's a total sham. They didn't get it right. They got it utterly wrong. It's a joke. Everybody on that committee needs to be fired and removed. Just complete nonsense. This is a mockery.
Preston Guy getting fired up over here.
I'm
all right,
pissed off.
Let's look at the New Year's 6 SEC bowl games. We'll start with the Cotton Bowl, Missouri, Ohio State. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Boy, that's going to be fun to watch. Now, Kyle McCord isn't playing in that one, though.
Correct.
Yeah, he's in the portal. That's very interesting there. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. even playing in that game? I don't think
hasn't been announced yet.
Yeah, so you got to really worry about that. And Missouri, they've been a very good, surprising team. I don't know much about Ohio State's backup quarterback situation. I do know that their receiving situation behind Marvin Harrison Jr. It's like Emeka Ibuka is their second leading receiver with like 463 yards.
Yeah.
I look, based on what based on that and the opt-outs, you'd have to go with Missouri.
And then, we just talked about Georgia and Florida State both being on the outside looking in. Now they get to play each other. So look, Florida State might not have made the playoff, but us as fans and media people, we're going to get one hell of a matchup in this game.
If Florida State manages to win that game, they need to just January 6th, the College Football Playoff Committee, demand their national championship that they earned. Okay, so I think we all understand Georgia on a neutral field would be favored against every football team in the country. Right. And they're probably going to be double-digit favorites against Florida State, right? Again, they deserve the chance to play and all that good stuff, but on the field in this match, they got the toughest draw they could possibly get. And they're doing it with a backup quarterback. I am going to roll with the Bulldogs in that one. I mean, that's just that's tougher than any matchup, arguably even the playoff matchups.
What about Ole Miss, Penn State, and the Peach Bowl?
Man, some really good matchups this year. I really like that one. I think Ole Miss takes care of business. Jackson Dart and company in that offense. I think that the Rebels roll in that one. I mean, Penn State does have a very good football team and all, but I just don't think that they can move the ball at the pace that Ole Miss can do. Because you watch that Michigan game and how slow that game moved, and they like to play this old school, rugged, tough defensive game. Drew Aller and company doing their thing efficiently, but just not. Ole Miss isn't going to let them play that style. They're going to move the ball up and down the field. I like the Rebels to take care of that one. Great matchup. Less confident in that than the last 2 picks.
And then obviously the Rose Bowl, Alabama, Michigan.
It's a good one. I would pick Michigan.
Really?
I would. I think Michigan's the better team. They're getting Harbaugh back, so things should be a bit better. Yep. We've seen. Remember when Sean Payton was suspended for those games, and then Joe Vitt got back, and they started like 0-4 or whatever with whoever like the offensive line coach or whatever was running things. Right. Well, Joe Vitt, who's a guy who's high up, having that presence on the sideline does matter. So I think they'll get a little bit better. The one caveat. Did you see Michigan's reaction?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's where I'm like, oh.
They were not happy.
They might not be ready for this. Now, I don't want to judge it too hard because they might have been sitting there thinking that, they might have just been like pissed off thinking Bama didn't deserve it. Like, really? They let those dudes in? But based on that reaction, I'm like, hey, maybe Alabama, it does kick their ass. We'll see. But I'll pick Michigan. I think Michigan is the better football team.
All right, let's look at some of the other ones. One that really kind of jumps out to me is the Texas Bowl. A&M Oklahoma State. I think that could be a pretty good matchup.
Dude, I have no idea what to make of Oklahoma State this year. They're the best and worst team in the Big 12.
Right.
They're all over the place. A&M, I mean, they're a mess, dude. And things are falling apart really quickly right now. I mean, the portal is going to ransack their team. Mike Elko isn't there yet. Who's going to be their interim coach? Is Elijah Robinson's leaving for Syracuse?
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
It's like,
I don't
is
know.
he even going to be? I assume he'll stick around and be the interim coach. So I'm just going to assume this is one of those games where it's an utter just blowout because there's one football team who barely has enough players to field the team as they're rebuilding and figuring things out. That's just the era of football we're in. Is teams will make a bowl game without a coach.
Correct.
And without an interim coach. They're on their third string coach and they won't even have a quarterback, and they just show up and they get a butt whooping and you move on and you rebuild for next season. That's what happened to Purdue last year. It's what happened to LSU the year before. And I think that's what we're going to see with Texas A&M.
Kentucky and Clemson's another one that jumps out to me. Clemson kind of had a down year a little bit. Kentucky is surprisingly, they're one of those teams that can show up at any given point. This could be a really interesting matchup as well.
It's a very tight matchup. I think this one's going to be very close. By the way, did you see Kentucky got Brock Vandegrift today?
Yeah.
So they must be excited about that. The Georgia backup quarterback. I think Clemson takes care of business in this one. I think Clemson's the better team. But close, very close.
Which one interests you more out of Auburn versus Maryland or Tennessee versus Iowa?
Well, anytime Iowa takes the field, I mean, that's must-watch television. Am I right?
If you bet the under.
Yeah, if you're betting the under, I was really disappointed that LSU didn't match up with Iowa after there was some talk about that. Just that LSU defense, Iowa offense matchup. What happens when a stoppable force hits a movable boundary?
Correct.
I mean, that would have been beautiful. Anyways, I'll take Tennessee, Iowa. I mean, they're talking about two quality teams. Iowa probably is the worst 10-win team in the country. But they just do not move the ball. But I know Tennessee at times, that offense just sputters and runs into the ground. With Milton lacking some consistency with his accuracy and whatnot. But I'll take Tennessee in that one.
And then lastly, of course, LSU, Wisconsin in the ReliaQuest Bowl, which, by the way, is an awful, awful bowl name.
Yeah. Oh, man. Probably one of the worst bowl names I've ever seen. I mean, I hate.
What are your thoughts on the game?
Bowl name. By the way, the Outback Bowl, it was before one of the better. Like I like it when a corporate, if it could be thematic somehow, like Outback. Okay, it's Outback Steakhouse, but it's Australian.
Like the Outback Bowl became synonymous with okay, you have your New Year's Six, you have your big games, and then the Outback Bowl's in that little tier right under it.
Right. I just when it's like a Cheez-It Bowl or a ReliaQuest Bowl. It's like, can we just make it the ReliaQuest Coconut Bowl or something like that, please? Just stop giving us these just like corporate sponsor bowl names. Like, give us some theme or something. It's just tacky. Anyways, LSU got a really good draw with 7-5 Wisconsin, who's really struggling to implement the air raid after it feels like a century of ground and pound top running backs, right? It's LSU's going to be double-digit favorites. And I think that holds up. The thing that scares me is I don't know who's going to play the bowl game for LSU. Does Jaden Daniels suit up? Because I think we all know without Jaden Daniels this year, I think LSU's like a 4 or 5 win team with that defense.
I think it's one of those things with Jaden where Malik Neighbors is going to play because he wants to break that record.
Right. And he said that much. Yeah.
And I think it's going to be Malik's going to walk up to Jaden and be like, look, I want to break this record. I want you to be the quarterback that helps me break it.
Let's do something special. Let's win 10 games.
If we dominate early, we can be sitting by the third quarter. Like, let's go have some fun.
I have a sneaky gut feeling they do play, but looking at it analytically and objectively,
Correct.
A lot of players who are in a position like Jane Daniels do not play that. I mean, Caleb Williams is sitting out. I'll say this. Here's another precedent we're talking about for this game. I do not believe there's ever been a reigning Heisman winner to opt out of a bowl game.
I would agree with that.
Now, part of that is eras. Like the opt-out era started, I don't know, 5 years ago, whatever. Yeah. And in the last 5 years, these guys have all been in playoff games, right? And there hasn't been a 3-loss Heisman winner since Lamar Jackson.
Correct.
So Lamar Jackson did play in that ball game, ironically enough, against LSU.
Against LSU.
LSU took care of business, held him to 9 points. It was a good game. That being said, that would set an interesting precedent of the Heisman winner ending his career after getting the Heisman, just sitting out. And it'd be intriguing. I have a gut feeling he plays. I think regardless, if he sits out, but you get Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors play, and Garrett Nussmeier has to run the show because you're playing in Wisconsin. I still think you're good enough with, let's say you get a quarterback who's 70% as good as Jane Daniels. Still think that's good enough. Now, do I think that's good enough to win a lot of games on your schedule this year? No, because your defense is it's sewer water. It's bad. It's terrible. Right. It's 101st in the country. I mean, you're an absolute liability. I mean, you're losing games where Jaden Daniels is hanging 49 points on people and you're losing them. So thank God it's a team like Wisconsin with that up in the air. If I could guarantee Jaden Daniels was playing, I would say that sucks for LSU to get a matchup that low. You really would want someone more exciting, like a NC State or someone like that.
Correct.
Iowa,
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Yeah, a lot of people were talking about Notre Dame, and I remember thinking to myself, like, here's the thing about Notre Dame is if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, that's a team that'll probably beat you. Correct. Just because Sam Hartman's going to hang 450 freaking yards on this terrible defense. So I like the matchup a lot. I think LSU with or without Jaden Daniels takes care of business. Without Jaden Daniels, it's a close game. With Jaden Daniels, cover the 10. They're covering the 10.
Preston Guy joining us here on the Miguez Mindset. Preston, I always appreciate you taking the time. Before you run, my man, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Well, if you like seeing people get roasted for bad Heisman takes, just follow me on Twitter, man. I've been doing a lot of Jaden Daniels for Heisman trade, and not because like I'm rooting and I think I want him to win it. It's just objectively he deserves it. And since Bo Nix lost the Pac-12 championship, it's funny how much that's cooled off. But go follow me on Twitter at pguy_77. You can go check out our YouTube channel where I do a weekly podcast, the LSU Football Fix, Mondays at 8 p.m. with Zach Nagy of LSU's website for Sports Illustrated. It's a great show. It's growing quite a bit. Go subscribe to our channel. We actually just hit 25,000 subscribers. I believe it makes us the largest LSU YouTube channel out there. So that was a very exciting benchmark to hit. You can also check us out on our website at tigerbait.com where all the above is linked there. All my writing I do for the games, all my recruiting updates, all that good stuff. So y'all go check it out.
Preston Guy joining us again on the Miguez Mindset. Preston, really appreciate you, buddy. And we'll talk soon before the bowl game.
All right, Matt. See you soon.
I want to take the time to thank Preston Guy of TigerBait.com for joining us here on the Miguez Mindset. Make sure you go follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. Subscribe to this YouTube channel at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Subscribe, like, follow, all that good stuff. Share it with your friends as well. And we'll be back later this week talking more about the Heisman Trophy ceremony. 4 finalists, but there's only one true favorite, and it is LSU's Jaden Daniels. We'll talk about why and much more coming up later this week on the Miguez Mindset on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles.